Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. It'll be quite nice. Have a good time. It'll be very evil. And you'll love that fan housing.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good mic work. Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cell.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast. Subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good mic work commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy weekend once again, everyone. Hope you guys are having a very, very busy and loaded Saturday. My God, is there a lot of stuff going on today. We've got a UFC pay-per-view going on across the pond. We've got a lot of Major League Baseball playoffs today. We've got NBA, we've got college football, and we have this podcast. And as soon as this podcast is over, WWE NXT Halloween Havoc airs, I believe, on Peacock. There's a ton of shit going on today, so I hope you guys are able to join us for what is going to be a very loaded podcast. Going to be news heavy today. We're going to talk a lot about CM Punk and that whole situation. We're also going to talk about who the hell Uncle Howdy might be, as Bray Wyatt kind of revealed Uncle Howdy last night at SmackDown. We're not sure if Uncle Howdy is somebody different, a completely different person, certainly doesn't look like Bray, or it just could be another extension of Bray Wyatt's obvious split personality that he probably has going on. We'll try to tackle and unpack all of that latest Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy news. We will also get into random AEW news, some Hangman Page updates. We also have some information on Billy Gunn almost appearing on Raw. Willow Nightingale is All Elite. Athena and Jody Threat ruffled some feathers or caused some controversy in their match on Dark this week. We'll talk about that. We'll look back at this past week's Tuesday Night Wars between AEW Dynamite and NXT. We'll look ahead to Raw on Monday, and we will preview Halloween Havoc tonight and the current Elimination Chamber. I'm sorry, not Elimination Chamber, Crown Jewel, excuse me. I have Elimination Chamber written right here in my notes, and it just passed across my face. But what I meant to say is Crown Jewel. We will run through that updated card, which I believe we have about 5 matches now listed, or at least scheduled tentatively for that. And we'll probably get into a few other news, notes, questions, tidbits, things like that. And I'm also going to let you guys know what to expect on the channel this weekend and this upcoming week. So, happy weekend to you once again. Happy to be back here for the Winged Eagle. I'm going to cruise over here to the chat in just a second. Say hello to everybody. Knock out the super chats. Shout out the patrons, the channel members. And then we are going to start talking about CM Punk because there's a lot to get into regarding that. Again, I apologize and thank you to everyone who are up here half an hour earlier. Normally we go live at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, but I've got to head to work a little bit early today. Plus, like I said, Halloween Havoc is coming up later on today, and I don't want this to overlap with that at all for those of you who like to watch that. Also, we've got a bunch of baseball on tonight, too. Yankees are on, and I think the Padres and Phillies are on as well. And like I said, Halloween Havoc. Lots going on. Anyway, good to see everybody like How Wheezy. Welcome, very top one in the chat there. Also, Maka International in the house. We've got Red Raven Rucker, Tatanani, Chaz Medeiros, Nick Musser, and Luke McAllister rounding out the first chunk of members. Luke, I appreciate that $5 super chat from you. What's up, Greg? It would be sad to see CM Punk's AEW return. I'm sorry. It would be sad to see CM Punk's AEW run end like this, but it's probably a necessary backward step for AEW to take in order to thrive. We will talk a lot about CM Punk's likely departure from AEW, what it means, how sad it is, and yes, it's a very, very sad situation, but as I tried to mention on Twitter yesterday, one thing fans have to remember is that that's not our fault. A lot of finger pointing and a lot of arguing amongst fans and stuff. There's really only one person to really blame in this situation, and we know who that is, and we'll talk about that later on. But it's okay to be a CM Punk fan and also not agree with what he did, and also be very disappointed that what he did cost him his run in the company. And we likely, or maybe not likely, but we could very well never see him involved in wrestling again if he doesn't go back to WWE and he never comes back to AEW. What a great return to wrestling, a great year-long run, only for it to completely implode the way it did is still very surreal to even think about. So we'll be getting into CM Punk here very shortly once we start getting into the news. Off Leather Wings, good to see you. Appreciate you. Thank you for the $5. Of all of the holds Bret Hart knew, his favorite to hold is a grudge. Bret Hart did shit on Goldberg, I believe, again this week. I did not hear it because if you've heard one Bret Hart Goldberg take, you've heard them all, so I'm sure he had something terrible to say about Goldberg. I think he said something to the effect of Goldberg should be removed from the WWE Hall of Fame. I'm no Goldberg fan, but Bret, that's a little bit ridiculous. I don't know what has crawled up Bret's ass regarding Goldberg, but I've talked about Bret and Goldberg before, and there was a time I have shoot interviews on video with Bret Hart just a couple of years after he retired, 03, whenever it was, the stroke happened, and I think in 02, and then he recovered from that, and he was doing some shoot interviews, and I remember hearing him say that he did not blame Goldberg for what happened. He considered it an accident, and all is cool between the two of them. And I think as the years went by and Bret realized how much that kick to the head really cost him, the fact that had that not forced him out of the ring, had he not gotten the stroke after that, he might have been able to have some sort of an in-ring run, even if it's small, in WWE, or a comeback, or possibly, cash in on some of these big money opportunities or WrestleManias. Yes, he got the match with Vince, but he probably could have gotten a lot more than that if he was healthy enough to actually work. Maybe he's bitter about that as he reflects and looks back, realized how much money he's lost while he watches Goldberg collect all these crown jewel paydays. Maybe it just got to him. I don't know, but Bret seems to have an unreasonable hatred for Goldberg, and that's coming from somebody who loves Bret and dislikes Goldberg. Even I think Bret is a little bit out of control when it comes to his hatred for Goldberg. But I'm not going to say it's not funny. It's hilarious, and I love reading about it. It's great. Ronnie in the house. Good to see you, my friend. Hey, buddy, how you been? I've been battling a cold lately. That sucks. It is heading into cold season, especially there on the East Coast, a little bit further north where it's going to be getting colder earlier. Yeah, Ronnie, rest up, man. And I know it doesn't make things easier when you're working 21-hour days like Ronnie seems to do. So rest up, my friend. Hope you feel better and just kick that cold's ass. And if you got to rest up and take a couple days off of work, do that. Drink or dump Robitussin down your gullet. Get some good rest. Drink lots of fluids. And tell work you'll be back when you feel better. That's my advice. David Brown, good to see you as well. Cheers to you from Scotland. Dreadhead Dre. Thank you for being here, channel member. Deshaun Robinson is in the house as well. So is Big J. So is Kevin. So is Jet the Hawk. And Kevin, welcome to the family. Thanks for joining and becoming a member. You can also do that by clicking the join button right below this video or down in the description. There's a link that'll take you over there if that makes things easier. Kevin, welcome, my friend, to the family. But I did lose George Morris. There you are. Welcome back, my friend. It took you 3 super chats to get in here. Usually you're the very first one, but good to see you, George. Appreciate that 5 as always. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? How are your cats? Very sad about Kevin Nash's son. How is work going? 3 guys arrested at Circle K today. What do you watch NBA? I watch NBA a little bit, pay a little bit more attention during the playoffs. If the Pistons ever become a first-place team and start dominating in the East, I will watch a lot more NBA. Right now, it's mostly an eyeball thing. We will be talking about the passing of Tristen Nash later on today, or I'm sorry, later on in this episode, and I am very interested in that Circle K arrest. I almost thought it said Circle Jerk. Circle K arrest. You've got an interesting life, George. Thanks for being here as always, my friend. Danny in Oak Park in the house with $2. Appreciate that. Football, baseball, and good mic work. That is a nice trio. I'll tell you what, we're in that very short window here in the States where all 4 major sports are going on at the same time. NBA just started, hockey's going on, football just kicked off last month, and baseball is in its playoffs, and we'll be heading into the World Series in a week or so, and everything is going on right now. Plus, we had UFC today, we've got NXT tonight. I'm trying to do a podcast in the middle of this shit, and we got some exciting videos scheduled this week, including a really fun watch-along for tomorrow. Link is already in the description, so check that out. I'll be plugging that in 1 second. Finishing up these super chats and shout-outs so we can get going here. I want to thank Zach Palgett for being here, as well as K-Dogs Kennel. Good to see you, man. Thank you for the update on your wife and her knee surgery earlier this week. Glad it sounds like everything went well. Very happy for you, and we've been thinking about you, my friend. I believe it was a knee. Do I have that right? I might have that wrong. I thought it was a knee. But very happy that she's doing well. And yes, like you said there in your next comment, she is probably very, very sore. Surgery tends to do that. Max Pokebro, not sure if I got you earlier. Thank you for that as well. And we also have Martin Tomlinson in the house. Good to see you, buddy. I am very glad you're here. So is Seba, Beetle 911, Isaac, Byron, Andy Linnell. Right on. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody in that. It doesn't look like I did. Right on. Let me just also do a quick shout out to all of our wonderful channel members and supporters that really help keep this channel moving. The memberships have been going very well. A lot of people signing up, and we are scheduling our next members only watch along for a week from tomorrow. So how we're going to do the members only watch alongs is I put up a poll for the members to let you guys decide what day would be best to do these watch-alongs on, because Saturdays are kind of out. I'm preparing for the podcast. We're already up here on Wednesdays for Dynamites, and we're already up here on Sundays for watch-alongs, but sounds like the weekend is still the best place to do these things. So every time we do a members-only watch-along, they are going to take place on Sundays, which means double duty. There's going to be 1 Sunday a month where I'm going to do 2 watch-alongs back-to-back. We're going to do one for the members, just a 2-hour wrestling show on Peacock, Raw, Nitro, 2-hour In Your House, something like that. And then on Sunday evenings, we will resume our classic pay-per-view watch-alongs for the entire YouTube subscribing audience. So that's what's going to be coming if you are a channel member. And you guys are helping me decide right as we speak in the community tab on which show we are going to watch next week. I like the suggestions so far, and I've almost got it narrowed down, I think, but I'll let you guys know which one we're going to do very soon. I want to welcome and thank Kevin, Deshaun Robinson, Zach Palgett, Dreadhead Dre, Sean 2018, Michael Hughes, Financial Truth Academy, Devlin Husband, Chasman Darris, Mike Tong, Ian Dunn, Longboard, Sam Pibboon, Jeff McMahon, Mikey Too Cool, Luke McAllister, Tar Brehan, Zelius Ward, William, Queasy, Bo Kavlovic, Al Ramos Pro, Zach H., Chris Miner, Mike Witt, Danny Almark, Jimmy Anderson, C. Mac, Mab, Joshua Aparicio, How Wheezy, Spaz Phoenix, Ronnie, Nicole Lansing, Marcus the Entertainer, Nikita Abalakin, Divine Ricks, Zane G, Chris Barrera, Michael Kumo, John J.E. Dennett, Tatanani, S, Nick Musser, K-Dogs, Kennel, Max Pokebrush, Spectra, Red Raven Rucker, Reese Jones, Victor Cologne, Isaac, George Morris, Stephen Taylor, Population 420, and, of course, the legendary JJ Leg. Thank you, as always, for all of your support and for joining up on the channel since we began the memberships back in August. It's been a lot of fun so far, and it's only going to get better the more members we take on, the more members-only content we're going to get. So please, if you'd like to sign up, you can do so. Click the button below, and it would be much appreciated. If not, just please subscribe, and that would be awesome as well. Let me just do a quick shout out to Zach Palgett, Joseph Hudson, Chris Broski, Define Ricks, Nikita Abalakin, Chris Miner, Super Fluffy Toaster, Deshaun Robinson, Martin Can, Apron Bump Podcast, Alan Carter, Brandon Yelverton, Nick Musser, K-Dogs Kennel, Ryan Y, John Redifer, Claudio Klabadetcher, Daniel Rodriguez, Reese Jones, Josiah Blevins, John Riffle, Michael Kumo, Naveed, and Blake Moran. Thank you to all of you who currently support on the Patreon page. A lot of support from you guys. Great listeners all these years. Cannot thank you enough. All right, so that does it for the shout-outs. The only thing I really have left to tell you guys about before we jump into the wrestling news and possibly knock out another super chat from Chris Miner is what's going on tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is classic pay-per-view watch-along night here on the channel. I know there's going to be some baseball on. I know there's going to be some football on, but we've been managing it. I got a TV right here on the wall. We'll have wrestling on. We'll monitor any scores and updates that we need to. Open up some cold ones and hang out tomorrow night as we watch WCW Halloween Havoc 1998. We're going to do it, y'all. We're going to sit through it together. We're going to sit back as a family and watch Hulk Hogan and the Warrior show us what true wrestling really is. We're about to watch the greatest match in professional wrestling history tomorrow night right here on the channel, Hogan and Warrior from WCW in 1998. You want to talk about a clinic? My God. Benoit, Angle, Jericho, Malenko. Hopefully they were all watching that match and taking notes because it was unbelievable. We will be watching that tomorrow night. I was this close to doing Halloween Havoc 1994 tomorrow. Clyde, our buddy Clyde, recommended that one and informed me, I think it was him, that Sunday, tomorrow, is the actual anniversary of Halloween Havoc 1994. But 98 also gets suggested and recommended by you guys a lot. So I decided to compare the two cards, and 1998 definitely looks like more fun. Plus, it was a controversial show with the main event shutting off Goldberg and DDP, them losing the pay-per-view feed. But as I've told the story before, I've even done a review of the show way back in the day, a few years back, that I ordered that pay-per-view that year because I wanted to see the Hogan and Warrior match. I was kind of curious about it. Plus, Goldberg was in the middle of his run, and he was kicking ass, and I actually plopped the money down. I bought every WWE pay-per-view, but I only bought a couple of WCW pay-per-views per year, and that was one of them in 1998. I watched it at home by myself. It wasn't a day where I had a bunch of people over or anything like that. It was just me, and I remember watching the Goldberg and DDP match, and the part of the match where the pay-per-view feed is lost, the only thing that happened to me is the screen blacked out for like 3 seconds. That was it. And then came right back on, and I was able to watch the whole match. So whatever kind of primitive ass deep south cable I had back in those days 24 years ago, it didn't affect me, and I was able to watch the entire Goldberg and DDP match without even knowing that anything happened. I didn't know about it until later when I called the hotlines to get post pay-per-view reports or whatever it was, and I heard them talking about the feed was lost and fans were pissed and whatever. So I wasn't even affected by the whole Goldberg DDP thing. I watched it like nothing was wrong. So that's going to be the show we're watching tomorrow night. I'm very much looking forward to that, and we will be back up here after that on Wednesday for a Dynamite watch along. No Raw review planned right now, but I also have a new segment, a new news segment that I'm going to be inserting into the channel here to give us 5 good, solid segments now. We have this weekly podcast every Saturday. We have our classic pay-per-view watch-alongs on Sundays. We've got our Wednesday Night Dynamite watch-alongs on Wednesdays. We've got mic drops where I take clips from podcasts to use, or I record exclusive ones. I've been doing a lot more of those lately on the channel, as you guys have noticed. So we've got the mic drops, and I wanted to create a news segment to where we could come up and talk about stuff on a week where there's a Saturday pay-per-view and there's no Winged Eagle podcast, or if news is piling up and I'm behind on it for any reason, or if for some reason I can't make it up here for a podcast on Saturday, or we need to do something faster, or my schedule is just jacked. I want to make sure I have kind of a news template ready to rock and roll to where I can just flip on the camera and we can talk about whatever we need to talk about. So that isn't going to be designated for any specific day. I'm just like the mic drops, I'm just going to use those where needed. So that gives us, 5 good channel series on the YouTube channel here for you guys to watch, and I'm looking forward to posting one of those very soon whenever some big news happens. It might happen this week if we get any more news about CM Punk and AEW and all that nonsense. So anyway, that's what you can expect this week and in the future, plus working on a couple of side projects as well. So lots going on the channel. Before we jump into the news, I want to do 2 more thank yous in the chat here. First one to Chris Miner. Appreciate that $10, my friend. I'll be in Philly next week for my wedding, and hopefully the Phillies make it to the series and win it all. Sorry, Greg. Have you ever experienced a national title win in a city you've lived in? Only once, technically. Let's backtrack there. So you're going to be in Philly for your wedding. So you are getting married? That's awesome. Congratulations. I'm not even upset with you for being a Phillies fan. It's totally cool. Yeah, if they make it to the World Series, that would be a nice wedding gift for you. So I can't say I'd be unhappy for you if that happened, but I'm definitely rooting for the Padres. The only time I've ever lived in a city where there's been a national title, I guess, would be in '84 when I lived in Michigan outside of Detroit in the suburbs, and the Tigers won the World Series. The Pistons won back-to-back NBA titles the year I moved away. I moved down to North Carolina in 1987, and the Pistons won in '89 and '90, and also went to the finals, I believe, in '87 and '88. So that didn't really count. But when I lived in North Carolina, I lived right in the middle of all of the ACC colleges, UNC, Duke, and NC State, and Wake Forest, and a lot of those teams won college national championships while I was there, so I was kind of close, but never have lived in an actual city. So this is the first time, because even when I lived in Michigan in '84, my address wasn't Detroit. My address was Auburn Hills or Pontiac or wherever the fuck I lived. Here, my address is actually San Diego, so I'm actually living in the city of what could be a world championship team, and I've never been able to experience that joy ever in my life. So my family's been out here in San Diego for 25 years now. I've been out here for 12. I consider this my home, so I don't feel like a bandwagon jumper at all for rooting for Padres. I go to Padre games. I love the Padres. I like the Chargers when they were here too. I did root for them. So it would be great based on how they're playing. I had a lot of confidence based on how they were playing that they could be one of those teams that just blows right through the playoffs and makes it all the way. They've got 3 games in Philly, so if we drop them all, it's over. We got to steal at least one of those in Philly to even bring it back here. So like I said last week, I think anything that happens beyond what Padres have already done is extra. Hey, at least they're in the postseason. We haven't experienced anything like that in a long time for the Padres. So even if they don't make it to the World Series, I'm not even going to be overly disappointed because I didn't expect them to make it this far anyway. So anyway, good luck to you, Chris. Congrats on the wedding, and may the best team win. And appreciate that other $2 later on that you just sent in. I lived in San Antonio in the 2000s, and the Spurs won a few. That would have been crazy to live there during that time. More wins over my teams, man. Spurs beating the Pistons. That drove me so crazy when that happened. Even though I liked the Spurs, they were a great team. They had our number, and it was annoying. Best YouTube channels there is alongside Solid Monster. Yeah, we're pretty cool dudes, I think. Jason's a great dude. Anyway, let's move on. We got stuff to talk about here, and I think the first thing we need to get into in terms of the news, since we've been flapping our gums for 23 minutes now, is the CM Punk AEW update and potential news regarding this whole situation. So it was broke, I believe, on Thursday, or the reports came out, I think it was on Thursday, that Ace Steel has now been officially released from AEW. He is the first release or the first casualty from Brawl Out and the fight after the media scrum. There was reportedly an internal investigation, and nothing was really going to be done. Everybody was going to be suspended, but no action was going to be taken until that investigation had concluded. Things went a little quiet for a while there. We didn't hear much about this supposed investigation and what it uncovered, and things got a little bit quiet on that end with Tony Khan refusing to talk about anything. The talent's been pretty tight-lipped about it. Even Dave Meltzer, who the Bucks, who Bucks have a move named after him, he wasn't even really providing that much, in terms of updates about the situation. We were all just sitting back and waiting to start finding out what the heck is going to happen and what the end result is going to be. Are we going to see the Elite back on TV at any point? Is Kenny coming back? Are the Bucks coming back? Are the Kenny and the Bucks leaving? Is CM Punk coming back? All that stuff. It's been all up in the air. We've all been questioning it. Now, ever since this happened, I've remained firm in my stance that I don't see any way that CM Punk can come back after what he did at All Out. Regardless of what started it or what triggered him to do that, none of that matters. Nothing is worse than what he did. And that was my belief and opinion right from the word go. We also heard a lot of talent during some of the early reports that Fightful Select or Meltzer had provided on the situation. A lot of talent had the same feeling. Like, how can you expect him to be back after that? What kind of logical brain says, oh, that's easy to smooth over? That's going to be tough to smooth over. Really tough. And I don't know how you can even come back after something like that. So a contract buyout, I think, has been in a lot of our minds ever since the very first day. I think the day after, or at least on Wednesday, because I guess in between the pay-per-view and the first Dynamite, we didn't know what was going on. But once Tony Khan made that announcement on Dynamite, he stripped and suspended everybody. That, I believe, is when some of the contract buyout rumors really got heated, because it felt like that was going to be the only logical response to this, really, when it's all said and done. But after we didn't hear about anything for a while, there was also some talk that, well, maybe things are being smoothed over. We don't know. But then when the news came out that Ace Steel was released, we have also seen some and heard some Elite, Young Bucks, and Kenny mentions on AEW TV in the last, I think, couple of weeks. I know CM Punk was shown in the former Ring of Honor Champions video package that they ran on Dynamite as well. So that was lending a little bit of evidence that maybe some people are headed back, or maybe we are closer to a conclusion, and maybe not everything is as up in the air as it once was. So when we got the news of Ace Steel being released, I believe it was yesterday, the Observer was reporting that those close to the situation believe that a buyout is being negotiated with CM Punk and AEW, but the only holdup being the non-compete. So that is the belief. Those who are close to the situation, according to Meltzer anyway, believe that a buyout is currently being negotiated right now. But there is some sort of a hang-up on the no-compete. Tony Khan probably wants to give CM Punk one, and CM Punk probably doesn't want one. That's what I'm guessing this hang-up is. It could be on the length of it. Maybe CM Punk is cool with a non-compete, but maybe Tony Khan's like, it's got to be 2 years or something, and Punk's like, fuck that. I don't know. But that apparently is the only thing holding them back. And honestly, that seems like something, in my mind, my instinct tells me that if that's all that's stopping them from getting this buyout done, I think it's in the best interest of both parties, especially AEW, to move on from this. Get this over with so you can move forward. Don't have anything tied up, no legal battles or whatnot. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm wanting to get this done, and get this done by any means necessary, just so I can move on and wash my hands of this. Because if it's clear now that he's not coming back, if that decision's already been made, which I believe it's kind of been made since day one, but now if it's official, there is no way CM Punk's going to come back to AEW. The only thing left to do is to wrap up our contractual business with him. If I'm sitting in Tony Khan's chair, the booker of AEW, a guy with a million other damn things on his mind, I got to get this done. This cannot be hanging over my head. This cannot be something I'm constantly asked about in press conferences. I want fans to focus and concentrate on the product that we have on TV and in the ring, and not all the shit that's going on back here. So let's get this over with. Let's get it done. But apparently a non-compete is what's holding things back here, and that's why I can only assume that Tony Khan wants to make sure there is a block there to where CM Punk can't just go straight to WWE. Now, I feel like we got to backtrack a lot because before we even talk about whether or not he could go to WWE, you know, we also need to talk about the no-compete and the non-compete stuff and if that's even important or necessary and if this decision is the right one, you know? I mean, there's just a lot to really even think about here in terms of CM Punk. I think the first and foremost, if this does turn out to be confirmed in the next couple of days or the next week or so or whatever, we hear about a finalization with the contract buyout of CM Punk, and he's officially gone from AEW like many people believe he will be, and this whole situation is over, I firmly and wholeheartedly believe that this is just a really, really sad situation. And coming from somebody who 25 years ago next month sat in a really similar situation, a really similar position with Bret Hart, who got screwed at Survivor Series. He was my favorite wrestler of all time. I was the biggest Bret Hart fangirl walking planet Earth. I also really, really loved the WWE product a lot better than the WCW product. And when Bret Hart got screwed at Survivor Series and went to WCW, I was so, I guess, bummed out. I was so disappointed. I was so saddened because that was the day in my mind that the Hitman died. The Hitman, as I knew, was dead. He was not going to be. I knew that. We all knew that before he even went to WCW, that there was going to be no success for him there. I think it arguably went worse for him than we even thought. But I think many people felt like Bret just wasn't going to find that same type of success, that same type of connection with the audience, that same type of character in WCW that he had in WWE. So when he left, it really messed me up because it made me question whether or not I should even be a wrestling fan. This is the only favorite wrestler I've ever had. And just like that, he's gone with no warning. I had no idea about the screw job or I had no idea about his leaving for WCW or anything like that. So when it happened so abruptly, I just remember being so saddened by that because of how much I felt like I lost as a fan with Bret Hart, how much more I still felt like he could give in the ring. And here he is, basically the WWE champion who had the belt taken from him, now going to the competition. I just remember being really saddened. At least we got to see Bret on WCW TV still. It's not like Bret was completely gone, but it was just different. It was different right away. So for all of the fans out there who are huge CM Punk fans and love CM Punk, or are huge AEW freakazoids, or whatever Ariel Helwani called them, if you have any sort of strong bond or connection with either one of these two, CM Punk or AEW, as a wrestling fan, I can tell you I feel for you. I do, because I know exactly where you're coming from, and I know exactly what this feels like when a wrestler that you love and are so happy to watch and have on TV abruptly leaves in a crazy controversial situation backstage after a pay-per-view. Been there, trust me. So before I say anything that I'm going to say about CM Punk, I just want everybody to know that I truly believe this is an extremely sad situation. I hate that it happened. I hate that the whole thing happened. I wish CM Punk was still in AEW. I wish he was still the champion. I wish that fight, that media scrum had never happened. I wished he didn't get injured, and I wished he was continuing his run because things were great. CM Punk had a great year-long run up until he won that title. And I was there at Double or Nothing. I watched him beat Hangman Page for the title. It felt like immediately after that is when things went downhill. He got hurt. He had to take time off. He let things fester and bother him. And then as soon as he came back, he unleashed it all at that media scrum. It was very odd. And the whole thing was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for AEW. It was embarrassing for pro wrestling. And when you look back at what was said and what he did that night, I don't know how any rational human mind can look at that situation and think that the elite are the ones that should leave and Punk should stay. It's fine if you've got, it's okay to be biased in that situation. If you really feel firmly one way or the other, if you really like CM Punk, but you hate all those other guys, obviously you're going to find a way to make it their fault and not CM Punk's. But I basically ask people this: take the situation that happened with Punk and apply that to any other endeavor of life or business. Where do you work now? Whatever you do for a living, plug that situation into your job. How is that going to be acceptable? I would have been surprised if there wasn't a fight after CM Punk said that. How can he say what he said on that scrum and not expect to be confronted behind the scenes about that? Is that what he wanted? Did he know that was going to happen? We did hear some of the reports that CM Punk kind of planned to go off on some sort of a rant on the scrum because he felt, and he was made to believe by his own boss, Tony Khan, that he was bulletproof, that he had the power to do that, to say those type of things without consequences. And it amazed me that CM Punk went that far and felt like he was entitled enough to say those things. That amazed me enough, but when it didn't seem like he was, Tony Khan sitting right there, I was just waiting for Tony Khan to say, yo, dude, stop, and he just let him just go on and on and on like that. So that was amazing enough. I would have been really surprised if CM Punk is able to come back after that. Whatever relationship he had with Tony Khan, I would assume that it had to be completely demolished at that point. And that's why right after All Out, I was like, how can he stick around? You can't have that situation happen anywhere else in life, and that's going to be okay. There's going to be serious consequences for something like that. And I just don't see in any form of business or sports or anything, if that same situation happens, that all these parties can come back together. Now, wrestling is a different cat because wrestling is all about, perceived and, trying to see what the right word is here, but perceived issues between people and simulated fighting and simulated beefs and simulated storylines and things like that. You put all this aside, the amount of money that could be made here if you get everybody, in a room and cooler heads prevail and you work out all your problems, and then you've got a CM Punk and Kenny Omega program or Bucks program or whatever. People have talked about that too, and we've talked about that in the past few weeks since All Out here on the podcast, that I think that would be possible for anybody else, any group of guys, if it just wasn't CM Punk being one of these people, because he's so stubborn and he's so hard-headed, and I just don't know if he's able to put those feelings aside enough and actually work with somebody. I mean, Matt Hardy and Edge did the program with Lita. To me, that was crazy surreal, and that really made me kind of respect both guys, that they were actually able to do a program like that given their personal animosity. But CM Punk is just different. I can't see him agreeing to work a program after all of these real personal feelings. And knowing Punk the way we do, based on the evidence we have to go on and how he's behaved and acted in the past, he seems like a guy who doesn't change his mind. He seems like a guy who doubles down. We were speculating that, maybe while CM Punk's sitting at home, he's, contemplating about what he did, looking back and saying, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I feel really bad about that. That was a stupid thing to say. I have remorse. I did a lot of damage to AEW. I owe them an apology. I owe the Elite an apology. Do we think for 1 minute that that's stuff that's going on in CM Punk's head? Has he ever struck you as the type of guy that would say, you know what, I was wrong. I am so sorry. I was a dick. I was irrational. I handled that wrong. If I was upset at the Bucks, or I was upset at Kenny and the Elite's behavior, or that Hangman is an empty-headed fuck, maybe I should have dealt with it a different way than the way I did. I don't believe CM Punk really felt that way. I don't believe that CM Punk was sitting at home feeling bad. He probably feels completely justified that he was in the right and they were in the wrong, and they deserved everything he said about them. And if Tony Khan doesn't want him in AEW anymore, that's fine, but you need to buy me out of my contract and let me go free and clear and do whatever I want. And that's probably the feeling CM Punk has. Tony Khan, on the other hand, doesn't want to just completely give in to those demands either, because he doesn't want CM Punk to go right over to the WWE. But would he? Is that what Tony Khan is worried about here? This is a lot of assumption, by the way. We're just speculating. None of this has been reported to be fact, other than a potential buyout is what most of the AEW talent close to the situation feels like is going to happen here. And that's not really that surprising. The contract buyout stuff has been rumored for weeks for CM Punk, so nothing there is really that surprising. Anything else we talk about is purely speculation. So I can only assume that the buyout issue and the non-compete has to do with Tony Khan wanting Punk to have one and Punk not wanting to have one. So let's just assume that's the case. If Tony Khan is worried about him going to WWE, I understand that, but And I'm only speaking for if I'm Tony Khan. Tony Khan is living in a completely different universe than me. So the set of circumstances surrounding the situation, there could be a lot more going on than I know about or you guys know about or whatever. But all I'm saying is looking at it in basic terms, putting myself in Tony Khan's shoes, looking at the situation I have with CM Punk, I need to get him out of here. Like I said before, I want the fans to be concentrating on the product that I'm putting out on TV, not the bullshit that's going on back here. And the longer this drags on, the longer this cloud hangs over our heads, the more it's going to be a distraction, and the more fans are going to be more concerned with that, wanting a resolution, taking away from the hardworking men and women that are out there busting their ass every night. This is what I want the attention on. I don't want it on the CM Punk drama. That's the way I'm looking at it if I'm Tony Khan. And I'm willing to get him out of there regardless. Yes, I'm heartbroken that my relationship with this person that I brought in, that I loved, that I professed my love to in front of the world. Yes, I'm very sad and upset that it didn't work out, but I got to put my big boy pants on. I'm the owner of this company, and I'm the promoter. I'm the booker. I own sports teams. I got a lot going on. I'm a very powerful, very rich man. I cannot take this bullshit from him. And if I'm Tony Khan, I am letting him go completely. Good mic work. Are you crazy? You can't just let him go free and clear and walk right over to WWE. Who guarantees that would even happen? That he would even go to WWE in the first place? Would they want him back? Bring in that personality into that locker room? I mean, that's a whole nother story, but if I'm Tony Khan, the non-compete doesn't matter. And unless the non-compete is something long-term. Unless we've got a year-plus non-compete that Tony Khan wants to negotiate here, because there's already going to be a non-compete with CM Punk's injury. He's injured. He's not going to be able to compete anyway. The only thing he'd be able to do is if he was free and clear with no contractual ties to AEW is make WWE appearances while he's injured. But is that really what WWE would want to do, just to put him on TV, just to capitalize off that buzz and just to stick it to AEW, bring this guy out there injured, just for the moment, just to capitalize off the buzz? Maybe Triple H would do that. But I also think that CM Punk, if he's going to go to WWE, I don't think a non-compete is going to get in the way. If he has a non-compete, he just goes to WWE when the non-compete is over. So we've already had a couple of months now of the buzz wearing off. It's not like he's going to be showing up on WWE TV 3 days after the fight at All Out. We've now had 2 months since then. He's currently injured. He's probably not going to be able to make any WWE appearances, even if they brought him in as early as they could. That probably wouldn't even happen until next year, around WrestleMania time, when you've got Cody coming back. The Rock might be coming back in. CM Punk offers, I believe, much more value in AEW than he would at WWE at this point. They have names. Roman is the biggest star he's ever been. So is Seth Rollins, for that matter. They still have Brock Lesnar. Rock is rumored to come back in for WrestleMania. Wouldn't you think if Rock and CM Punk both wrestled on WrestleMania that Rock would overshadow CM Punk to a degree? I kind of think he might. And there would just be a lot going on to where it wouldn't be the biggest thing happening in the company. The fans would go crazy. The internet would melt. You can't say that it wouldn't. You don't have to look, all the evidence you need is when CM Punk returned on Rampage in front of that sold-out United Center crowd. If CM Punk, even given everything that's happened with him, and even some fans maybe changing their perception of him, if he were to come out on WWE TV to Cult of Personality, it would be an enormous moment. Nobody is denying that. So if I'm Tony Khan, it's going to happen whether or not there's a non-compete or not. And I believe Tony Khan, because I think he's got some, he's got to make some repairs to his reputation too. And I feel like that he sends a much stronger message to future CM Punk employers if he just releases him free and clear. Here, take him. He's your headache now. You want to walk out on Raw and change the culture? Be my guest. Go hobble your ass right out there on your gimpy ass leg or your bum shoulder or whatever. You've been a 2-time world champion here. You got injured twice. What does CM Punk at his age athletically, what does he offer to WWE? Very little. He works great programs. He's a great professional wrestler, but this is a guy who was embarrassed in the UFC, so what's he going to do? Come in and work with Brock? Brock's going to be like, I don't want to work with him. I don't want to sell for him. Look at what happened to him when he stepped into my world. And that Brock Lesnar CM Punk match at SummerSlam in 2013 is one of my favorite SummerSlam matches of all time. But I almost feel like Brock would be like, I'm not working with him. I'd fucking kill him. And you're going to want to have a competitive match, but that's not believable. So I don't even know, other than just the buzz it would create, what real, true value CM Punk could bring to WWE at this point. What are they going to do? Put their belt on him? Why? So he can just get injured, the very next day too, just like he did twice in AEW. There probably isn't a whole lot of confidence there in CM Punk's physical condition in WWE. Triple H and CM Punk have been known to not have the greatest relationship. CM Punk has talked a lot of trash about Triple H over the years, and we know that they had kind of a rocky relationship there during the summer of Punk and some of their on-air interactions and the promos and whatnot. So they've had kind of a weird history. But again, Triple H is in a much different place in his life. He's not a wrestler anymore. He's an executive. He is now Vince McMahon. He's going to do whatever's best for the company, regardless of whatever personal feelings or beefs that he's had in the past. I truly believe that about Triple H. So I think that if the timing is right, if the money is right, if the situation is right, sure, CM Punk could come back into WWE, and that would be crazy. But really, what would he do there? Would he get on the mic and cut an X-Pac style promo on AEW like X-Pac did to AEW or to WCW back in the day? Is that really what WWE would want him to do? I think many people, even in WWE, I'm sure a lot of the talent there, probably feel like CM Punk's in the wrong as well. Meltzer went on to note in his reporting that most of the AEW locker room, not all, but most, are anti-Punk. And they don't really like his attitude. He's got a bad one. He comes off as a dick. He's abrasive. He rubs people the wrong way. He's arrogant. He's got a huge ego. There's a lot of personal problems that has been documented. This is not speculation. These have all been issues that CM Punk has had that have been really, really well documented throughout the years. And we thought when he came back after 8 years off, he had time to cleanse himself of that. What the fuck happened? This guy came into AEW all smiles. Everything was smiles. Everything was great. Enjoyed his time there. He was goofing off on Twitter and interacting with other AEW stars. Seemed so thrilled to be there. And for it all to crumble so quickly, so abruptly, and so fast over the summer, when what should have been the summer of Punk was anything but. It was the opposite of the summer of Punk. It was the summer of shit. And it was terrible. And his whole entire status, spot in the company, relationship with the wrestlers and the fans crumbled like nothing I have ever seen in this business, which is why, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm washing my hands of this whole situation and say, yes, there is a good chance if I release him free and clear, he's going to walk right over to the competition. That's not ideal. I'm the first one to admit that, but it's not going to be right away. It's really going to happen one way or the other, even if you give him a no-compete, unless Tony Khan, like I said, is trying to work in a year or two non-compete. Then I can understand CM Punk balking at that a little bit. But like I said, if I'm Tony Khan, I will negotiate this and try to meet Punk halfway wherever they are on this. I don't know if it's Punk wants no non-compete and Khan wants a little one, or if Khan wants a big one and Punk wants a small one. Whatever it is, meet each other halfway and get this shit done so you guys can move on, so we as fans can move on, so the Elite can come back into the WWE, and CM Punk can do another podcast where he just talks all about this situation. And he's not friends with Colt Cabana anymore, but if he ever does do a tell-all on his side of things, it probably will be one of the most interesting podcasts, if that's what it is, or interviews that you could ever do, because I'm dying to know. But again, when contract buyout negotiations are taking place, possibly a gag order or something like that is going to be put into effect. Maybe a court has to, well, no, I guess a court doesn't have to because Vince had those things signed, but maybe that's something that could also be worked out to where the Bucks and Kenny and CM Punk are not going to talk about this on every single interview they do. Maybe that can also be worked in. But whatever happens at the end of the day, I have believed from day one that the only real logical solution to this whole situation is for Phil Brooks to leave AEW. I just don't believe, does not matter how you feel or who, if you don't like the Elite or you don't like Kenny. Somebody on Twitter last night had to criticize Hangman for not being able to sell a clothesline, and he should be to blame for CM Punk's. I'm like, see, you just outed yourself. You know, if you have to include a little dig to a wrestler, then obviously I'm not going to take your opinion seriously because you already have a biased perspective of this whole fucking thing. You don't like him and you like him, and you're just going to tailor your opinions to that. I'm saying in this situation, anybody who has no dog in this fight looking at the situation, there's not going to be anybody that's going to say, I think CM Punk was right to do what he did. Live, on the media, with your boss sitting next to you, complaining about kids being immature, complaining about wrestlers being immature kids when you're being one yourself. CM Punk is a lot of hypocrisy with him, with what he says, with his philosophy, with what he believes, is best for pro wrestling. And sometimes he doesn't always look good in those situations. And this is coming from a big CM Punk fan. I was almost crying like that kid was when he came back on that rampage. Kid with tears down his face. I feel like a lot of us felt that way. Even people who weren't really big CM Punk fans got caught up in that moment. Everybody did. It was amazing. I love CM Punk. I loved him in AEW, and I absolutely hate what happened. But that doesn't mean that I'm just going to let him off the hook for really causing this whole situation. There were better ways to deal with this. I believe that CM Punk could be in an AEW ring right now had he just been and acted a little bit differently. Well, maybe the injury would have kept him out, but I'm saying his run in AEW would still be intact. He'd still be in the pocket of Tony Khan. He'd still be the biggest star in that company. He'd still be champion. And all he had to do was just, I guess, not be himself. And that's going to be pretty hard for CM Punk to do. But in the long run and in the short run, I think if I'm Tony Khan, I'm letting him out of his deal free and clear, maybe with a small non-compete, just give him a couple of months or whatever. Maybe Tony Khan wants to keep him away from WrestleMania. That's understandable because I don't know how spiteful Triple H likes to be. I think that Triple H, his new job is going to be focusing on what WWE is doing and presenting the best product they can for their audience. But Triple H has been known to take a lot of digs at other companies as well. And I think Triple H could bring in CM Punk just to spite AEW or just to do harm to them in some way. But like really at the end of the day, what harm would that do? AEW, I think would look worse, if they kept CM Punk on. That was another point I try to make. If Tony Khan is worried about what CM Punk might do, don't worry about it. You're making a statement saying, I don't want this in my company. I think it would look worse and make AEW and Tony Khan look worse if they begged CM Punk to come back, let's please work something out, and they brought him back in. That would draw a lot of criticisms from the media, from fans. Wow, Tony Khan sat right there and let that guy say that shit, and he brought him back in, and he didn't fire him? That's crazy. So Tony Khan's in a lose-lose regardless here. So maybe if he wants to put in place a non-compete that runs through April of next year, I guess I could understand that. But I think it's a stretch that CM Punk even goes to WWE. A lot would have to be thought about. A lot would have to be talked about and worked out for him to even be there, what that would interject into your WWE locker room morale that is finally on the upswing since Vince has left. You're throwing a monkey wrench back into that. Is it worth it in the long run? In the short term, yes, it's worth it because Twitter would melt, buzz would be crazy, it would be all fans were talking about, and they would get a great initial reaction from that. But in the long term, would it be worth the investment? Because CM Punk's not going to come into WWE unless they pay him an obscene amount of money. So they'd have to be willing to pay Punk Brock money and give him a Brock contract to even bring him in. So is WWE willing to do that? Is he as valuable as Brock? No, I don't believe he is for a second. So there's a lot of roadblocks there too for him coming into WWE. At this point, I think the only way he would go to WWE is if WWE really, really wanted to stick it to AEW for whatever reason. But again, Triple H would draw criticism too. I know there would be people, myself included maybe, who would probably say, wow, you're willing to bring that person in and pay him all of that money and risk what that could potentially do to your locker room morale just to get one over on AEW, I think Triple H would be criticized as well, like bringing somebody like that in or whatever. But what trumps all of this is the money. And what trumps all of this is CM Punk's name and what he brings. This guy was gone for 8 years and still had his name chanted in every arena and every promotion around the world for some reason. You can't pretend that CM Punk has no name value. He does. Anything that he does on TV dominates the Twitter trends. WWE and any company that signs CM Punk needs to take that in consideration as well. I don't know if New Japan would really even be a place for him. I don't think New Japan would put up with him talking that way in some sort of a media scrum. None of those boys would. Punk might run into some problems over there. And of course, WWE doesn't do scrums to begin with, so that wouldn't be an issue, but maybe some of his attitude problems and things like that would be. So I just don't know. I think we have seen a lot of things in the last couple of years, especially this year, that we thought we would never see. So it would be foolish and stupid of me to sit here and say, we will never see CM Punk in WWE. We also said Vince McMahon will never leave WWE until he dies. That happened. Cody left AEW. We've seen a lot of crazy things happen that we thought we would never see before happen within just the last few months alone. So it would be really short-sighted to sit there and arrogantly proclaim that there is no way CM Punk would ever go to WWE. I'm not going to do that because there's a lot of people that I thought would never go to WWE, and they did. Just like we never thought we would see CM Punk come back after all those years, and we did. Saw him come back in AEW, and he won the championship there. We got CM Punk. At the end of the day, hey, we at least got CM Punk back. We sat for almost a decade asking ourselves, what would it be like? What would it be like if CM Punk came back? Where would he go? For years, the only option was WWE. He had no other option to return other than WWE if he really wanted to make a splash. But they had a terrible relationship with each other. He was brought on by Fox, that FS1 show, and I believe they were even pressing WWE to hire him at that point, and they didn't want to. But that was with Vince. Triple H is a different story. So, at least all of those years that we wondered what it would be like if CM Punk came back, at least we got that. Because we saw that he can still do it. He had great matches. He had great programs. That program with MJF was so much fun. Everything he did in AEW for that entire year, I feel like was a success. It was just the ending that really sucked. So at least we got that question answered. At least we didn't have to go our whole lives with 2014 being the final time we saw CM Punk in the ring. We got him back, and we got him back for a year. At least we have that. I feel like it should have been more. I felt like it should have been 2 to 5 years more of CM Punk we should still be enjoying in AEW, but that's over now. Maybe there's still time in CM Punk's life if he's not going to go back to WWE or nothing ever gets worked out there. Maybe a year or two passes. Maybe 2 years go by. Punk never goes to WWE. Communications open back up between Tony Khan and CM Punk. Maybe Punk and the Bucks are at the same convention in 2024. They bump into each other, chat a little bit, smooth it over. Well, maybe we can work something out, or maybe we can do something in the future. And maybe by then, 2 years from now, yes, Punk is stubborn as fuck, but maybe by then, just cooler. I mean, Brett and Sean came back together, so who knows? But maybe in a couple of years, Punk could come back and have some sort of like farewell run in AEW. But all of this seems so unlikely right now. It's so early on in this whole situation. I mean, this whole scrum gate and brawl happened just 2 months ago, and we're still trying to let all of the dust settle from that, and I know we're looking way ahead. But with the report of a CM Punk buyout being negotiated right now, and the only holdup being the non-compete, in my heart of hearts and my instinct tells me we should hear about the buyout being finalized, I think, really soon. I can't see both parties really sitting on this for too long and having a stalemate that lasts months and months and months. Like I said, if I'm Tony Khan, I want to get this done. And who knows where CM Punk's head's at either. He might want to get this done just as bad as I think Tony Khan should want to get it done. So maybe CM Punk will be the one to cave. I don't know. I just believe that if that's all it's coming down to at this point is the non-compete, work that out. Just work it out. Do what either one of you needs to do. Tony Khan, give him what he wants, or CM Punk, you cave in on something. Just get it done. That's all I ask, because I'm kind of sick of it, to be honest. I just want this whole situation resolved and over with and done, so we can move on as wrestling fans and figure out, the future of all these guys. And the quicker the buyout happens, the sooner we get the Elite, the Bucks back on TV, and AEW can just resume life like they were prior to CM Punk being there. So, yeah, that whole situation's a mess. My God. I know I've been blabbering about the CM Punk nonsense for the last few minutes. So let me just cruise up here to the chat, see what you guys have to say about it, knock out the super chats, welcome new channel members. And while I'm doing that, you guys could really help me out with some likes. Man, this channel gets shit for likes. I don't know why, but please hook me up with some likes before I have to be one of those people that goes online and buys them, because people do that. I've seen it, and I know who you are. But anyway, help a brother out. Hook me up with some likes. Just Alex says, like the video. Yeah, thanks, dude. Appreciate that. Help me out. And good to see you in here, man. Go subscribe to Just Alex's channel. He talks about a lot of shit, too. Same type of stuff I do. Randall Yates, I want to welcome you to the family. Thank you very much for joining and becoming a member. Yeah, you're the new channel member. That's what you are, Randall Yates. And your logos will change as your length of membership grows. I also want to say hello to Max, member for 3 months. Punk and Brett can't shut up about their raw deals. No, they cannot. Although Punk, I don't know how much of a raw deal he's really going to get. He's going to be cleaning up. First of all, AEW probably paid him a ton of money to begin with to sign him, and they're probably going to pay him a ton to buy him out. So, yeah. Michael Hughes is here. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for joining the family recently as well. Stone Cold 10X, appreciate that. $2. Thank you. Well said about Punk, Greg. I had such a hard time. I don't think I even said any of that right or very well, but I had such a hard time of organizing my Punk notes in terms of what do I talk about, the buyout or the WWE stuff, or could he go there, or who I think's right, or is he in the wrong, or whatever. It's just a lot of information, and we've been talking endlessly about this whole situation ever since it happened back in August. But I've never strayed from the opinion that Punk was just flat out in the wrong. I don't know how anybody can think that was justified. There's nothing. It does not matter what Hangman paid. Oh, that was just his receipt. Fuck you. That's not a receipt. That's way beyond a receipt. Doesn't matter what Hangman Page supposedly said, or if you read between the lines in his promo. It doesn't matter if Nick and Matt Jackson are playing tiddlywinks back there in their executive vice president chairs or whatever else bugged CM Punk. Nothing justifies the unprofessionalism that he showed at All Out. There's no other way to look at that. No other way. It's just flat out the way it is. You can't change it. And again, that's coming from somebody who's a very, very big CM Punk fan. I bet Punk remembers the name of a kid on the bus that threw a paper plane at him in the second grade. He probably does. He probably carries on grudges for a long time. Yeah, you got to remember, too, Triple H did bridge the gap between Bruno and Vince and the Ultimate Warrior and Vince, but Triple H didn't have any personal beef with those two. He does a little bit with CM Punk, so he'd have to squash that. I mean, maybe him and Punk would be more comparable to like Hogan and Vince or something. You know, Hogan and Vince had, kind of their issues or whatnot, but they were able to get past those in order to make money. So it just depends on if Triple H thinks there's money to be made, if it's worth it to go make this money, and if it's worth it to bring CM Punk in and put him in a feud with somebody. I would hate for CM Punk to come in and then leapfrog Cody, all the great work Cody's done, in his short time back in WWE with his return and the great matches. I think even at this point, Cody might even have better matches than CM Punk, just based on their athletic ability. CM Punk does kind of move around like he's got lead in his ass. He always has. So I just don't know what kind of major money he could really draw in WWE other than just returning and breaking the internet. What would he do beyond that? What program would he be in? What kind of matches would he have? When he got to AEW, I think the very first thing everybody wanted to see was CM Punk and MJF. Does he have that guy in WWE? Maybe Seth Rollins? Maybe. I don't know if there's somebody in WWE right now like, oh my God, get Punk and him in the ring with microphones. That would be, you can main event a WrestleMania with that. I don't know if, who that person is. I don't know. It's going to be up to Triple H in the long run. that's faux show. But anyway, we got to move on from CM Punk. I've been talking about CM Punk for the past 30 minutes. Let's move on from him. And let's stick with AEW and talk about CM Punk's best friend, Hangman Page. We've got an update on Hangman Page. Of course, we were here last Tuesday all watching AEW Dynamite together, and in the main event of Dynamite, the Jon Moxley and Hangman Page title match, Jon Moxley nailed Hangman Page with a King Kong lariat. Page landed awkwardly, didn't move. Referees called for the bell. They ended the match early, improvised the last 9 minutes of the show while the medical team and staff stretchered Hangman Page out of there, even had to detach the bottom rope to get enough room to get him out of there on the stretcher. And like I said that night, and as I said in the mic drop later on that night, without us knowing any information, the one thing that I noticed right away is that even though the camera stayed off of Adam Page for the most part, it remained on him long enough to see them roll him over. He was moving a little bit, and I think the entire time it took to get him out of the ring and stretchered and wheeled away was something like 4 to 6 minutes. It was very quick. So that told me that this was not anything neck-related, spine-related. There's no paralyzation. If any of that was going on, it would have taken an hour to stabilize him, move him over, get him set up, get him out of there. You guys have seen it happen in football games. How long does that stop a game? It takes a long time to deal with an injury like that. So we had a good idea that it wasn't anything like Darren Drozdov or anything too gnarly, but might have suffered a stinger. And then there was the early report of a concussion. That did turn out to be what it was. AEW provided an update later on that night saying that Hangman Page did suffer a concussion and he has entered into the AEW concussion protocol. And that basically implies that he's going to be all right. Got his bell rung. He's going to have to go through the protocol and do some stuff before he can get back in the ring. But that is a huge relief. Concussions are terrible, especially what we know now about CTE and how dangerous these things can be. But in the long term, it's still better news than what a lot of people were fearing. There was a lot of scared people in the audience. The commentators really didn't know what to say. It even spooked MJF. See that? He tweeted prayers for Hangman. And then about an hour later, when he found out Hangman was okay, he goes, damn it, he's okay. Now I feel bad for tweeting it. He took it back. He took back his well wishes to Hangman Page once he found out that Hangman was going to be all right, which is classic MJF, and it's why we love him. The next day, Hangman Page did provide an update as well on social media, tweeted out that he is doing fine and that he had a panini for lunch. Paninis rule. Hangman Page rules. I'm very happy to hear that he is on the comeback trail. Hopefully the concussion rehab and protocol and everything he's got to go through goes well. There's no complications there. And hopefully that's all this was, because when you go back and look at that lariat, he did land funny. He landed on the side of his head and kind of crinked his neck a little bit. But it wasn't a bump that stood out to me as like, oh shit, he's really hurt. We just went on with business. He took the bump. I think we're still talking on the watch along. And then I'm like, oh, they're calling for the bell. And that was the right call. I'm glad that they made that call, because there have been situations in AEW where they haven't made the right decision. That Matt Hardy bump, that match in the stadium or whatever, was really, really scary. And I think what made the decision here easier is that I'm certain that Jon Moxley was scheduled to retain the title on Tuesday. He was going to win that match anyway. So at least calling for the bell as a precaution, at least you're not fucking up your booking, because let's just say, for argument's sake, Hangman was supposed to win and he was supposed to win the title on Tuesday. I don't believe they were going to do that, but let's just say that was the plan. Do you think the referee would have called for the bell as quickly as he did? Or do you think they might have been like, can you go? Can you get up? Are you okay? Are you okay? Or do you think they would have maybe panicked or stalled a little bit? Luckily, since Moxley was going to be the winner anyway, no harm done. End the match now out of precaution. Doesn't screw up anything else you're doing. Just makes you have to improvise the last few minutes of the show. And of course, we saw MJF come out and announce that he is going to be cashing in his poker chip at Full Gear, and he will challenge Jon Moxley for the title. And I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like William Regal's going to turn on Moxley and help MJF win that championship. But that's a ways off in the short term. Just really grateful and happy to hear that Hangman Page is going to be okay, and all the best of luck to him in his recovery. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, staying with the subject of AEW, we talked about the possibility of Billy Gunn showing up on Raw last week or whenever it was for the DX 25th reunion. I even posted an entire mic drop about how cool this would be if AEW would allow him to go there, citing other examples of them working together in the past. Chris Jericho on Broken Skull Sessions, Danielson and Big Show and Jericho sending in videos for John Cena's anniversary in WWE. Even Billy Gunn was a part of the DX Hall of Fame induction when he first signed with AEW after being a trainer in NXT for however long. And I thought it would be really great if AEW would work out something with WWE to where Billy Gunn was allowed to be on Raw. I was really hoping they would do that because it would send a message to the fans that, see, you know, you don't always have to hate each other and pick a side. Sometimes you can come together in the name of fun. And I just think that would send a strong message to the audiences of both companies. And then, of course, it didn't happen. Well, now we're starting to learn that apparently there were some plans to try to get Billy Gunn on Raw. There were some discussions between AEW and WWE to have Billy Gunn appear on the show, even went as far as WWE to make internal travel plans for Billy Gunn. And according to the reports, the one thing that kind of stalled the discussion is that AEW just wanted Billy Gunn to be announced as an AEW competitor or have an AEW logo in the lower third. And to me, that seems like an incredibly reasonable request. If you're Tony Khan, yes, Billy Gunn is 88 years old. He's the oldest member of DX. He's older than The Undertaker, and he's out there wrestling every week, which I just think is insane. Yes, but he's still, even at that age, he still is part of a very overact and over gimmick in AEW right now. So if Tony Khan is willing to let him go to WWE and all he wants in return is for you to flash an AEW logo on Raw, and that's what stopped you, you know, those are the little tiny decisions that I really wish could be worked out, because from WWE's perspective, do we want to highlight another promotion? I understand that they don't want to do that, but it's not like fans don't know AEW exists. Even people who don't watch AEW, if they see that AEW logo, they're not going to be like, what's that? Another wrestling promotion? I didn't know there was another one. Of course they've heard of it. So I don't think it would even matter. It wouldn't cost WWE viewers. They wouldn't lose viewers to AEW by putting it there. I understand the philosophy of not wanting to promote or highlight your competition. Yes, I get that. But if you need a favor from your competition, then sometimes you might need to do that fucking shit. And it would not have mattered at all. In the long term, I think as a fan would have been cool as hell to see Billy Gunn out there with the lower third pop-up Billy Gunn little AEW logo on the side. I would have screenshotted that and I would have posted it on Twitter and said, look how cool this is. Because let me tell you, as somebody that lived through the Monday Night Wars and the WCW and WWE war, that never would have happened. You never would have gotten these two companies to come together for anything. And think about if Eric Bischoff wasn't such a little piece of shit and he wasn't so hell-bent on putting WWE out of business, maybe you could have done some things like this here and there if you wanted to. You could get little tiny appearances from minor members of the roster or some crossovers here or there if you had a better relationship, you know, between the two companies. And AEW and WWE aren't on great terms, but they have done business together before. And this was such a minor thing, such a minor segment. It's not like it was the top segment on the show that was going to be involved in the main event WWE title storyline. It was just a little DX reunion. How can you have a DX reunion without one of the biggest members of DX? Props to Road Dogg, who did the whole chant and allowed the fans to chant Billy Gunn's name, but Billy Gunn still wasn't there. And when you hear the story that the only thing that really held that back from happening is AEW wanting a little bit of acknowledgement on WWE, and they didn't want to do it, it's disappointing. I mean, Mickie James came out with the Impact title. They've got a New Japan champion right now on their company and in their company. Like I said, Jericho's been on BSS. So I think that was a reasonable request. It wasn't over the top, and it's one that WWE should have allowed, and they should have done it. I think the fans would have liked it, appreciated it. It would have been a lot of fun, and they just should have done it. So I'm bummed out it didn't happen, but hopefully next time something like this comes around, the companies are on good enough terms with each other to where something could potentially be worked out. Let's get into some WWE news. We have some possible news on WWE PLE. I still am not ready to say PLE, man. I still like PPV, pay-per-view. I like saying that. but there have been some talks about some changes coming to WWE's PLE schedule, and I think that's been needed for quite some time. Now, there was the report, I think it was Brandon Thurston who reported this initially, that WWE is going to be dropping their day one pay-per-view, which they did last year, or they did this year. That was the day that Big E won the title. It was a New Year's Day pay-per-view. And I didn't know how they were even going to keep that up. Yes, New Year's Day is a holiday, so it doesn't really matter what day of the week it falls on, but it's probably best if that shit is a Saturday or a Sunday or whatnot. And I thought it was going to be really hard for them to keep up the day one pay-per-view forever, because eventually day one is going to fall on a Monday or a Friday or something like that. I don't know what day it falls on this year, on January 1st. But I never really liked the idea of that pay-per-view anyway. So I'm really happy to hear that that is no longer going to be a thing. That's great. And Alvarez had mentioned that there has been talk of adding some more international shows and less gimmick pay-per-views, which I'm a huge supporter of. I've talked about that on this on the channel so many times in the past. When it comes to WWE pay-per-views, I cannot stand gimmick pay-per-views, specifically Hell in the Cell. Hell in the Cell is the one that chaps my ass the most, because Hell in the Cell matches are supposed to be these demonic, brutal structures generally used to blow off a feud or to blow off an issue, or when you have a storyline that really, really calls for it for whatever reason. The only way this situation or this matter between these two wrestlers can be resolved is inside of a Hell in the Cell. And it's great to use those cells when you need it, when you've got a storyline or a feud or an angle that warrants it or calls for it. That's when I believe you should use Hell in the Cell matches. And you can use those anywhere. Put them on any pay-per-view you want. Just use them when you need them. But when you have an entire pay-per-view dedicated to that, and it's already on your calendar months in advance, I almost think that you book yourself into a corner. You either put yourself in a situation where you say, hey, we've got Hell in the Cell coming up in 4 months. Let's make sure we have a program that's going to be personal enough that we can stick it in the cell. But what if you don't currently have one of those programs going on? Then you have to force one, or you just have to put two people in the cell for no reason, which we've also seen. We've seen a couple of Hell in the Cell matches where they're like, why are they even in a cell? Do they hate each other that bad that they really need to be in a Hell in the Cell match? So I would love for Hell in the Cell to be dumped. Not the Hell in the Cell matches, just the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. We can talk about the match. The match has got its own problems now because the damn cage looks like a toy. It's red. It's 3 times the height it used to be. It doesn't even resemble the Hell in the Cell from 25 years ago. But I still will take that over having an entire pay-per-view named after the Cell match. So I love the idea of getting rid of gimmick pay-per-views, specifically Hell in the Cell. I don't like the Elimination Chamber either. I hate the Elimination Chamber match. I think it's dumb. I don't like the pods, the plexiglass, the dumb shining spinning lights. I think the whole contraption is absurd. It looks like a spaceship, and I've never been a fan of the Elimination Chamber ever. I know there's been some good matches. There have been some decent ones here or there, but the whole match is so stupid. That door is so big. It's so easy to get in and out of there. I just don't get the appeal of it. I know it was a crazy idea sparked by Bischoff 20 years ago now. We should probably watch that. We should probably watch... Oh, no, we already did. We watched Survivor Series 2002 last year, I believe. But that is a 20-year-old match now, and I would really like that pay-per-view to not exist anymore either. Now, I understand you might have to bring it back if you need a reason to... If you have 2 championships, the Royal Rumble, that's the way they used to do it. The Rumble would determine one challenger, and then the Elimination Chamber would sometimes determine the other. Maybe you have to use the chamber for that, possibly. But again, if you do, just use it when you need it. Whatever pay-per-view you're going to have and you need a match like that to narrow something down, a multi-person match where somebody either wins a championship or gets a title shot or whatever, just like the Hell in the Cell, put that Elimination Chamber, place it wherever you need it. It doesn't matter where you need it. Just don't book a whole pay-per-view, based on that, because then you're forcing yourself to make those matches when you might not have any storylines that calls for them, and that drives me crazy. I don't think they did a Elimination Chamber this year, right? Maybe we did Crown Jewel or something. So Elimination Chamber might already be gone. TLC, same thing. I don't think we've done a TLC in a while, and I don't think there's a pay-per-view scheduled for December. So Hell in the Cell, Elimination Chamber, and TLC, I would love to see never show their faces again on a pay-per-view schedule. Money in the Bank is one that I'm willing to keep. I still think that you could put the Money in the Bank matches at WrestleMania. A lot of fans are in favor of that, and that's a good way to do it. But Money in the Bank is a pay-per-view that I've been able to tolerate. They have been fun. They have created a lot of buzz in recent years, and I think they were a pretty good replacement for King of the Ring in June, because King of the Ring, it was kind of implied when you won the King of the Ring that you were going to get a future title shot, or that was your next step, is to get a shot at the title, and sometimes you would just flat out get a shot at the title. But with the Money in the Bank, it makes it a lot more fun. You've got the briefcase, you can cash it in whenever you want. So maybe I'm in the minority of this, but I'm not touching Money in the Bank. Go ahead and leave that one where it is. Money in the Bank, I think, is the only gimmick pay-per-view that I would like to see, is Money in the Bank. I guess technically you could consider Royal Rumble and Survivor Series gimmick pay-per-views, sort of, but we're even getting away from that a little bit at Survivor Series as well, now that we've got more games coming in. So here's how I would like to see a revised WWE calendar to look. I would go January, obviously, for the Royal Rumble, and I would like to see nothing in between Rumble and Mania. That would be great. Unfortunately, that's not going to be possible, because I do believe WWE has a 12 PLE deal with Peacock, so they have to give us 12 pay-per-views per year on Peacock anyway, so not having a pay-per-view between between the Rumble and WrestleMania is probably unlikely. So if you got to have a pay-per-view in between there, that's probably where one of the crown jewels needs to go, or something. I think that's what they did this year, right? I forgot what happened in February, but maybe do January Rumble, February or early March Crown Jewel, and then early April or late March you do WrestleMania. So go January Rumble, March WrestleMania, April, I would like to see Backlash. I just think Backlash, not WrestleMania Backlash, just Backlash. Return to the pay-per-view schedule. It's the perfect name for a pay-per-view to follow WrestleMania, and I would like to see Backlash return to the after WrestleMania slot on the pay-per-view schedule. Maybe bump Money in the Bank to May. After that, put Money in the Bank in May. I think Money in the Bank was in May this year. And then for June, there has been talk about WWE bringing back the King of the Ring. We just talked about WWE doing less gimmick pay-per-views, but in these rumors and the reports, was the talk of maybe WWE bringing back the King of the Ring for an actual pay-per-view, or Queen of the Ring. Do them both in the same night even. And that would be, in my mind, a great spot for a UK pay-per-view. If you're going to bring back the King of the Ring in any capacity for a pay-per-view, do it in the UK. Do it over there, because they got kings and queens over there. We don't have them here. That's the perfect place to do it. Plus, it would put another international pay-per-view on the calendar. And as we saw with Clash at the Castle, and anything they do in the UK at all, it's always going to be a huge deal. So I think the King of the Ring would be fun if it was done overseas. So that's where I would put King of the Ring. Do a UK pay-per-view every year in June for King of the Ring. July, do whatever you want. Just don't make it Great Balls of Fire or Battleground or anything else stupid. July could be, I wouldn't put Extreme Rules in July, I don't think, because I feel like Extreme Rules is more used for maybe blow-off feuds. I feel like Extreme Rules should come after SummerSlam. Extreme Rules coming before SummerSlam means that you're going to be probably wrapping up a lot of issues at Extreme Rules and needing all fresh ones for SummerSlam. So I don't know what the proper name for the pay-per-view in July would be, but put one there. Maybe it could be Fully Loaded, or maybe not Judgment Day, Fully Loaded, or I don't know, No Mercy or something like that in July. And then, of course, August we will have SummerSlam. Maybe September could be a good spot for Extreme Rules, because at SummerSlam, you're going to have a lot of issues unresolved. You might have, a return or something, or a title change, and you need to blow it off the next month at Extreme Rules. WWE might bring back Night of Champions or something or whatever in September. Unforgiven's used to run in September, but I think Extreme Rules would be great. Then in October, it would be fun to bring back a WCW pay-per-view like Halloween Havoc. If not, just do a No Mercy in October. But again, you have to wonder about where the next crown jewel would fall, and that would probably be around the time of year they do it, February and October. That's assuming we get 2 crown jewels and 2 Saudi Arabia shows. Then you got Survivor Series in November and nothing in December. And I would like to keep it that way. And I would like to go ahead and pitch an idea that I've been pitching for the last, 8 or 9 years on this channel for a December pay-per-view. Do the Slammies. Do the Slammies. I have such fond memories of the Slammies in 85 and 86 and 87, or maybe it was 86 and 87 when they did it, and then they did it in the 90s, 96 and 97, and I like the setting of the wrestlers getting dressed up in suits and ties, sitting in a banquet hall and with a stage and awards, kind of like the Grammys or whatever. I absolutely cannot stand when they do it at Raw, or when they just set up a Raw stage and they put all the chairs in front. Don't be cheap, or whatever, rent out a banquet hall, have these wrestlers actually dress up and try to do it the way you used to do it back in the day. I think it could be fun. It would be a great WWE special to look forward to every holiday season, how crazy the Slammies can get, but they just have to want to do it. They have to put forth the effort to get that done, and sometimes I wonder if WWE even cares enough to have fun like that. But I just think no wrestling pay-per-view in December, and do the Slammies instead on Peacock. 3-hour show where you can just do a lot of stuff, have a lot of fun, and a fun way to close out the year. The wrestlers taking home awards and whatnot. I think it would be a great December show to do annually in WWE. So I would love that to actually be a PLE. And of course, you got to think about Australia, the UK, and Saudi Arabia. Maybe they even do a show in Japan. So between the 10 or so regular pay-per-views, the 2 Crown Jewels, and a UK pay-per-view, we'll see how the pay-per-view schedule winds up looking. But I am very much in favor of getting rid of Hell in the Cell, never doing a chamber pay-per-view again. And of course, hopefully we will never see TLC again either. The only one I'm willing to keep, Money in the Bank. I'm okay with that. Speaking of WWE and shows coming up, WWE's 30th anniversary of Raw is coming up this year, 2023. It seems like just yesterday we were doing the 25-year one, remember? I think we watched it. I think we did a watch-along of that, where they were back in the Manhattan Center. They tried to run Barclays and Manhattan Center, and there have been some talks that now the WWE's obviously going to be booking a 30th anniversary show. Now, the actual anniversary, I believe, is January 11th, which is a Wednesday. So not only does AEW get November 9th, the anniversary of the Screwjob, on a Wednesday, they also get the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw on a Wednesday as well, on January 11th. So there have been some early discussions and early reports and rumblings about WWE maybe attempting to go back to the Manhattan Center. Now, when they did this last time, it was a little bit of a letdown. The fans did not seem to have a good time. I do know The Miz was able to work both events. He showed up at both, and they did the DX thing with, I think, Balor and the OC and AJ and all that stuff, and they did the click thing, and it was largely a letdown and a disappointment, I think, to most fans in the arena and at home. So if they did the same thing this year, I just asked them to make the Manhattan Center portion of Raw better. Could you put the whole show in the Manhattan Center? I don't know. I don't know if that would even be good. For me, it would be cool to see them do that, because I love the old Manhattan Center Raws, but for a modern fan, it would look very different. I don't know if WWE could sit still. I don't know if Kevin Dunn could sit still in his chair, knowing that they don't have the fucking lasers and the 4K renders and the 3D stuff and the Titantrons and all that stuff to work with, and it's more of an old school setting. I just feel like they'd go crazy because they can't show off their great production and whatnot. So I don't even know if a full 3-hour Raw in 2023 could even take place in the Manhattan Center and how that would even look for TV. But I am open to them doing both, a Barclays Manhattan Center combo, provided it's a little bit more balanced out this time and it enhances the fan experience in the Manhattan Center, and they do more matches and more stuff from the Manhattan Center. Maybe do half and half or something, you know what I mean? So we'll see what comes up and what they announce for that show. They'll probably be announcing something in the next month or two. And let me ask you this, as it relates to the Raw 30th anniversary. How would you feel as a fan if we had Vince McMahon welcome us to the show that night? Doesn't even have to be in person. What if it's on video or a recording of him just doing "Welcome to Monday" in his Vince voice, Or if they maybe brought him out on the Manhattan Center just to say hello and welcome us to the show and then walk away and never to be seen again. Like, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's something they might do? I feel like it could be, because we've already heard some reports that maybe they're going to be looking to put Vince into the WWE Hall of Fame. I feel like that's something they should be worrying about next year at WrestleMania 40. Maybe not this year for 39, but if they are thinking about it for WrestleMania 39, having a Vince McMahon appearance in January might be a good way to judge the public's perception. If they get a lot of criticism for the Vince appearance, if a lot of fans are happy about it, I mean, no matter what, Vince could just pull down his pants and take a shit in these people's mom's mouth, and he could still walk out to TV and they would do this. Doesn't matter. Vince is bulletproof in that respect. Fans are just going to automatically start cheering him and going nuts whenever he comes out. So I'm sure a lot of fans would have no problem with it because they have very little problem with anything. But when it comes to that stuff, but how would they be criticized in the media? How would the board of directors view this? Would it even be worth it to do it just to give fans the cool moment? Because there's also plenty of already existing clips of Vince going, wow, come to Monday Night Raw, so they can just make their own video package with him. But if they did do something at the Manhattan Center, part of me thinks it would be kind of cool for Vince to come out in the ring in a tux and the red bow tie, or the old Monday Night Raw shit he used to wear, and then just say, welcome to Monday Night Raw, and then leave. That's it. If that was all it was, maybe it's not something I would flip my lid about. Still not sure if it's a really good idea, but just wanted to gauge what you guys thought. Is that something you would accept? I don't want Vince in the ring doing segments or, talking his ass off or do anything crazy. I'm talking about just a brief appearance where he does his welcome to Monday Night Raw in his Vince McMahon voice, whether it's in person or via satellite. Would you guys be cool with it? I'm not sure. I think I would be, like I said, provided it was just small, because you can't deny Vince's history in WWE, and you can't deny that his voice was a big part of those early days in WWE. He was there before Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler. It was Vince and Savage, and mostly Vince. And that's who we heard calling the matches for a long time in WWE before he took a step back. So it feels like it would be fitting if Vince had some sort of appearance or presence, I should say, on that 30th Raw anniversary show. And if they are, like I said, going to put them in the Hall of Fame in the future, might be a good place to test those waters. You know what I mean? Let's circle back briefly to AEW. There was a match on Dark this week that sparked some controversy. It was between Athena and a local talent by the name of Jody Threat, who a lot of fans in the Toronto area know and like. She received such a good ovation in that match on Dark that Athena had to work heel. Now, there was a pretty stiff sequence in the match that was cropped out and spread around social media to where Athena seemed to be a bit on the aggressive side. It seemed like a stiff, aggressive sequence, but nothing overly bad. This wasn't Perry Saturn and Mike Bell or anything like that. It's not like she was just beating the shit out of this poor girl. It didn't seem like that at all. Seemed like a little bit of an aggressive sequence, but that was it. And I thought nothing of it. But fans were flipping their lid. They're, oh my God, this is unsafe and how reckless. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, doesn't look that reckless to me. I don't see what everybody's seeing. Look at the fucking matches we just watched Sheamus and Gunther have with each other and the absolute shit these guys kick out of each other. This seemed so minor and so insignificant, I didn't think anything of it. But man, it sparked a lot of discussion and arguing and discourse online all week about this. And it was enough to catch the attention of AEW management. Apparently, they did speak to both of these women after the match. And according to the reports, there was some sort of a communication breakdown during that sequence that we all saw, where Jody was supposed to make her comeback. She slipped and fell down a little bit. I don't think Athena was angry or taking out her frustrations on her or anything like that. It was just the way the sequence went. It did catch the attention of AEW management. They spoke to both women, and there is no issue. It was a completely non-issue the whole time. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I saw so many people, like always, AEW is unsafe and this is the type of shit that goes on there. I'm like, this is not even that big of a deal at all. This does not seem like an overly aggressive. It seems slightly stiff at best. And like I said, why is it with the women? Why is it whenever the women get a little bit of aggressive, all of a sudden things are unsafe? When we see the men brutalizing each other on a daily basis on both shows. And so what bothered me about this is a lot of the complaining and a lot of the people that were using this as a way to attack AEW were pretending to care about wrestlers' safety. Please, give me a break. You don't give two shits about anybody's safety. None of those people complaining about the safety of wrestlers care about the safety of wrestlers. The only thing that matters to them at all is using whatever they can find against whatever promotion their Twitter timelines have told them to hate. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with the safety and well-being of Jody or Athena or what's professional or what's not. It's all about what you can use against the company you hate, and people were being stupid. These are fans that have probably been watching wrestling for 10, 15, 20 years, find a perfectly normal-looking sequence in a wrestling ring to be so wrong and so unprofessional that they just have to, they're so blinded by the hate that they will use anything, no matter how insignificant or trivial that they can, as ammunition. And it's sad. It was ridiculous. I watched the clip and I'm like, that's what we're freaking out about? That? Looked like nothing to me. Looked like absolutely nothing. You know? This type of shit usually comes from the alpha male crowd too. I'm like, I thought you liked toughness and ass kicking. Like, what the hell? All of a sudden you're worried about somebody's safety. No, you're not. There was no issue between these two. Neither woman said there was an issue with each other. They have no issue. There was no beef. There was no problem, animosity at all between these two, and the whole thing was just silly. So I thought I'd mention it to say, yeah, if you haven't seen that exchange between Athena and Jody, check it out. It was nothing. It was nothing. If you think it was something, then shit, I don't know what the hell you were watching. Anyway, it's not important. We'll move on from that. We did see this week, of course, this past week on Tuesday, Dynamite and NXT went head-to-head. Ratings were in. I was really excited to see the ratings for both of those shows on Wednesday morning, and I was waiting for them to come through. And here are the numbers that we got. Dynamite did win the overall rating, 752,000 to NXT's 676,000. However, I have to say, that's a moral victory for NXT. WWE did stack NXT to try to compete with Dynamite. We heard the reports that WWE was going to try to beat Dynamite. I think everybody knew that was probably unrealistic, but they came within 75,000 viewers of doing it. That's pretty close. Now, they stacked up NXT. We had appearances by Rhea Ripley, Kevin Owens, the Good Brothers, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Austin Theory came out at the end, maybe teasing that he could cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase tonight at Halloween Havoc in the triple threat for the title. I think it's Braun Breaker, Ilya Dragunov, and JD McDonough. How do you say his new name these days? He could maybe cash in there. I think that would be a good place for him to do it because it doesn't really seem like he's got a realistic chance of cashing in against Roman right now. We've seen Charlotte cash in her Royal Rumble victory on an NXT title match. Why can't Theory do the same with the Money in the Bank? I would love to send Theory back to NXT, but I'm skeptical of that. I think Theory came out to tease Money in the Bank more as a way to put star power or to put main roster star power on that NXT show to compete with Dynamite. That's all I think that was, but I suppose it's possible that Theory could show up tonight and actually cash that thing in. We will see. But despite the fact that NXT loaded up the show, they still did fall to Dynamite, who had to move nights, go up against NXT, and did beat them in the ratings. But like I said, it was not a landslide. And I think both numbers are very good for the companies. First of all, they were head-to-head with each other, and there was a ton going on. We had football games, or we had baseball games. What was going on Tuesday? Probably Major League Baseball playoffs and something else. There was big stuff going on Tuesday. They had a lot of competition, plus they had each other to compete with, and still, despite all of those games being on, all of those other distractions combined, they pulled in, 1.4 million viewers between the two companies? That's good for professional wrestling in today's day and age, that many people watching on one night, on a Tuesday night, when there's a million different options of things to watch on. Those are solid numbers. I don't think it's a loss for either. I saw a lot of people say, all Dynamite could get is 752. I'm like, bitch, they moved nights, and they went head-to-head with another wrestling company, and they had a lot of outside competition from other sports. And they still, did relative comparable numbers to what they do. Dynamite's been in that 900,000 to 1 million range. So for them to move nights, go head-to-head with another wrestling show, and to have sports on, and they only dropped like 200,000 viewers, that's good. Nothing bad about that. I think NXT pulled a great number. I think Dynamite pulled a great number. Props to both. How do you like that? And, of course, on Dynamite on Tuesday, we did see Hangman Page lose to Jon Moxley in that very scary finish. at the end of that match where we saw MJF come out and tease a cash-in only to announce that he's going to officially cash in his chip and get his title shot against Jon Moxley at Full Gear. And I fully expect, or at least I think, they're planting the seeds for Regal to turn on Jon Moxley here. That whole promo on Tuesday between Regal and MJF was phenomenal. My God, that was good. And I really liked Regal calling MJF out for, taking shortcuts and whatnot. So I think that's going to be the story going in, is Regal telling MJF, you gotta nut up and start doing things like a man and stop taking shortcuts, which is why MJF came out and did exactly that. I'm not going to take advantage of the situation. I'm going to tell you when I'm going to cash it in. No more shortcuts. Full Gear will be when I want my title shot. So he's going to talk all this talk about not taking any shortcuts, only to have William Regal help him out and potentially help him take a shortcut and beat Jon Moxley for the title. I feel like that's where they're going, but we will have to wait and see. Either way, great shit from both guys, Regal and Moxley last week. Regal and MJF last week on the mic. So good. Enjoyed the Jericho and Dalton Castle match as well. Jericho's got a tag team match this week, but he's probably going to be facing another former Ring of Honor champion somewhere down the road. Who's left? Who's left for him to face that they can actually use? So I'm wondering who's next for Jericho. This week on Dynamite so far, we have advertised FTR versus Swerve in Our Glory #1 contenders match. I expect FTR to win that and hopefully potentially get those AEW tag team titles back somewhere down the road. And also, we've got Jericho and Daniel Garcia teaming up to take on Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta in a tag team match on Dynamite. Those are the only two matches I saw advertised today, unless they have added a couple more in the last couple of hours, but I don't think they have. So Dynamite should be pretty good this week as we build to Full Gear coming up in just a couple of weeks. And we also have Crown Jewel coming up in just a couple of weeks as well. Since we are on the subject, actually, let's run through this Halloween Havoc card, which goes live in less than an hour. Halloween Havoc tonight. A lot of these names I don't even know, but we've got Shotzi Blackheart and Quincy Elliott. They're going to co-host Halloween Havoc this year. I know Shotzi has done hosting duties before. We've got Julius Creed taking on Damon Kemp in an ambulance match. Roxanne Perez versus Cora Jade. Weapons Wild match. Mandy Rose taking on Alba Fire for the NXT Women's title. I just learned about Mandy Rose's brother. That's sad. Apparently, he has passed away. We've got Apollo Crews taking on Grayson Waller, and we have a ladder match for the North American title four-way. Von Wagner, Carmelo Hayes, Wesley, and Nathan Frazier. And the main event, Braun Breaker defending against Ilya Dragunov and JD McDonough in the main event. It looks like maybe we could get a Austin Theory cash-in, but probably not. Kind of got some jumbled up notes here. Raw this week, past week, 1.8 million. Pretty decent rating considering they're up against Monday Night Football right now. No matches yet announced for Raw on Monday either. Let's see what else we have to get into here. I got to scroll back up here. I want to talk about Tristen Nash in one moment, but I'm just trying to see what other AEW and WWE news we have to wrap up. And, of course, we have to talk about Uncle Howdy on SmackDown. Let's wrap up, or let's talk briefly about Rampage last night as well, because I saw a little bit of the show, and it was pretty good. We had Orange Cassidy, defeating Ten and Roosh in a triple threat to retain the All-Atlantic title. That was fun. Hook defeated Arya Daivari to retain the FTW title. The Acclaimed defeated Tony Nese and Josh Woods for the right to scissor. They have gotten that right back, apparently. That was the stipulation in the match last night. So scissoring is back. That's very exciting. I enjoyed the Jade Cargill, Nyla Rose stuff. Of course, Nyla Rose has stolen the TBS championship. Jade Cargill wants it back. She tried to sit in the ring and demanded her belt back last night on Rampage, only for Nyla to show up on the screen in a car with her belt and then drove off with it. So that was pretty funny. And we had Willow Nightingale defeating Layla Gray one-on-one. And after the match, it was announced that Willow is officially All Elite. She is signed full-time to AEW, and that is fantastic news for her. She is beloved. Everybody absolutely loves Willow. She's great. I wish her the best. We love her on this channel, and very, very happy that she is officially signed with AEW. The only other things we really have to get into are two of the other major major stories I wanted to get into, and one of those is a story that we're not going to spend a ton of time on, but I want to mention that. And that is, of course, this week, Tristen Nash, the son of Kevin Nash, has suddenly passed away at the very young age of 26. Now, this is a very sad situation. Sean Ross Sapp broke the story through a third party that informed everybody of the passing, and that Kevin and his wife, Tamara, have requested privacy during this whole ordeal. And I feel like that's really all we can give them at this point. I mean, Tristen was only 26. He was very young. It would be shitty to speculate on any cause of death or anything at this point, since nothing has really been released. Now, Tristen was working with Kevin Nash on his new podcast, Click This with Sean Oliver. Sean Oliver also posted an update, which I'll talk about in just a second. But he's been working with his dad on his podcast. I've watched a few clips of Click This on YouTube and have loved it. I've said before, Kevin Nash has always been one of my favorite people in the wrestling business. I just think he's cool and laid back and more of a regular guy. And, you know, you ever think about people you'd want to sit down and have a beer with? Kevin Nash is that guy for me. He just really always has been. Just really like and respect Kevin Nash. I think he's hilarious. I think he's cool. And I'm just gutted and heartbroken for him and his family. His son has had some problems before. Remember, I think it was back in 2014. The two of them spent a Christmas Eve in jail because I think Tristen came home intoxicated. There was a little bit of an altercation with his dad. The police were called, and they had to spend Christmas Eve night in jail. And Kevin Nash, after that, did a long interview. I believe it was with Sean Oliver. It was one of the kayfabe interviews or something, and he talked about the whole situation in detail. So I'm not speaking about anything about Kevin's life that I shouldn't be. This is all stuff that he's talked about, and he detailed the entire situation, what happened that night. And I remember feeling really bad for him, that he was in a really tough situation as a dad, you know, because he's very honest. Kevin Nash is not dishonest about anything. You know, he was very honest about what happened and the circumstances of that night. And he came off to me as actually a really, really loving father in that whole situation. And he even talked about how the next day things were all good. They kind of even joked about how nasty the food was in there, and they got out the next day, and everything has been fine since. That was 8 years ago. Tristen was 18 back then. He's 26 now. Seems like those issues were long past, and Tristen and his dad were in a good place. He was working on the podcast with him, so hearing about his death was extremely sad because we love Kevin Nash on this channel and always have. So we wish Kevin Nash, Tamara, the entire Nash family all the best when you're going through what I can't even imagine. No parent deserves to lose their son or their child. You know, it's a pain that no parent should have to go through. You should never outlive your kids. And especially someone like Nash, who openly talks about how early he thinks he's going to die, you know, because he's his size and his heart and things like that. You know, for him to outlive his son is absolutely just gut-wrenching, and it's a horrible tragedy. And we just feel terribly for Kevin Nash. So, Kevin, all the best to you. We love you, Big Daddy Cool. Condolences to you and your family while you deal with all of this. And we just love you, man. Now, Sean Oliver, who, of course, is the co-host of Click This with Kevin Nash, he did post an update on behalf of Kevin on Twitter yesterday that said, and I quote, "Thank you for all of the tidal wave of wishes." Excuse me. Thank you all. I cannot read today. Thank you all for the tidal wave of wishes, condolences, and prayers for Kevin, Tamara, and all who knew and loved Tristen. Kevin is insistent that he address the Click This family personally very soon. Thank you for your patience. #T, which is what I put on the thumbnail. I thought that was appropriate. #T. And that sounds like Kevin. Once he's completed, you know, the process and gone through the mourning and all of this terrible, horrible nightmare that he's got to go through, he's going to talk about it, and he's going to divulge all the information that we need. So if we want to hear the circumstances of what happened and the cause of death and everything surrounding that, it sounds like Kevin's going to be very open and honest about that, and he's going to tell us when he's ready. So until then, all we can do is just wish him the best and just feel horrible that that's just something that he has to go through. I just feel so bad. Absolutely heartbreaking to read that news this week, and rest in peace, Tristen Nash, and condolences out to Kevin, his wife, and of course his whole family, and any friends of Tristen. I know Click members. Scott Hall's birthday was actually the same day that Tristen passed away, so that's a little bit of a kick in the nuts that I don't think Kevin or anybody else needed. But X-Pac, Sean Waltman, and Shawn Michaels. I'm sure they knew Tristen and watched him grow up, and Triple H as well. And hopefully they're all there for their friend. It's just horrifying to hear stuff like that. And it's kind of been bumming me out all week, to be honest, because I'm just a really big Kevin Nash fan. I've always liked Kevin Nash. I've always really, really liked him. So bummed out to hear about Tristen Nash. Rest in peace, kid, and best wishes and condolences out to the Nash family. That was one thing I wanted to get into earlier, but I didn't want to open up the podcast with some really bad news. So I figured we would save that one for later and talk about it when we get near the end. But the only thing really left to discuss now before we get out of here is last night's SmackDown. Now, I did not really watch SmackDown last night. I only watched 3 major parts. I watched the Solo Sikoa Sheamus match that Solo won, and then after the fact, the Bloodline beat the hell out of Sheamus with a chair, injuring him. And I think that's a kayfabe injury, but they did beat the hell out of Sheamus pretty good there. There was no Roman Reigns on SmackDown last night, so the Bloodline was kind of on their own. The main event segment was a Logan Paul promo where he went on to run his mouth, and he was attacked from behind by Jey Uso. Now, Roman Reigns apparently had already ordered the Bloodline not to get in Logan Paul's face or do anything to him. Jey disobeyed those orders, beat the hell out of Logan Paul. Sami Zayn then showed up and ordered Jey Uso out of the ring. This is not from me, he said. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from Roman. This is coming from the tribal chief. You have to listen to me, is basically what he told him. You have to get out of the ring. But while all this is going on, Logan Paul is able to recover. Jey doesn't listen to Sami. He goes to attack Logan Paul some more, and then Logan hits him with one punch and knocks Jey Uso out. So Roman is going to be none too pleased with Jey Uso that he didn't listen to not only him, but Sami Zayn. And got in a little fist fight with Logan Paul. And, of course, Logan is facing Roman Reigns on November 5th at Crown Jewel for the championship. And, hey, at least WWE is admitting on TV that Logan doesn't stand much of a chance because he cannot be winning that WWE title in Crown Jewel. He better not. But the biggest part and the biggest moment last night, I believe, on SmackDown was the latest in the Bray Wyatt saga. Now, the first thing we get from him is a backstage promo. Again, dressed a little bit more normal and much different vibe than he had when he was in the ring last week this time. They're playing his new theme song in the background, and he's talking about how he is now a servant. Everything is out of his hands, and he's going to be doing horrible things on his journey. But what is it about the circle? He's just something about the circle is going to... What the fuck did he say? All I know is that he made it seem like he's being controlled by somebody else, which is what we speculated on when he first came back in the mask. There was the whole point of the podcast last week was the split personality deal with Bray Wyatt. We weren't sure if the Wyatt 6 is going to be a faction with him and 5 other guys, or if the Wyatt 6 is going to be him and 5 different extensions of himself, if he's going to be feuding with himself, what entity or who is controlling him. We've heard of WWE trademarks of Uncle Howdy and Uncle Harper. So as he's talking last night, you can tell that he's basically warning us that he's going to get evil. He's going to get dark, and it's out of his hands. He has nothing. He has no control over it. He absolutely must do what he's told to do. And then it kind of cuts to that creepy-ass video, and you hear a voice that's saying, "Never lie to the ones you love." And you get, I guess, a QR code flashing on the screen. When you scan the QR code, it takes you to a medical form, kind of like a psychiatric evaluation with Bray Wyatt's name on there, with his birthday on there, and with a phone number on there. Now, if you call the number, actually physically call the phone number on the psych evaluation, it takes you to lyrics from the David Bowie song, "Man Who Sold the World," which has a great cover by Nirvana on their Unplugged album in '94. Takes you to a verse from that song for some reason, "Man Who Sold the World," which I think is kind of cool. And if you read further on the medical evaluation form, it says things like Bray Wyatt has difficulty showing remorse, disregarding or violating the results of others, and whatnot. And then at the very end of the video, very end of this video, you see this figure. It's like it's got a hat, almost like an Undertaker hat with thorns around the top of it. And then as it scans down, it looks like he's wearing like a prosthetic cheek or face mask, almost like handlebar mustache. And you hear a voice that goes, "Howdy," or something like that, or "Uncle Howdy." And apparently that figure that we saw last night is Uncle Howdy. So if there's an Uncle Howdy, that must mean there's an Uncle Harper. Now, when you look at this figure, you can't tell who it is. And that's one of, like I've said, ever since the beginning of this whole thing with Bray Wyatt, is that the most attractive thing to me personally about this entire storyline is how truly unpredictable it is. We do not know where it's going. You don't know. I don't know. You can't look at that figure and say, "Oh, good mic work. That's Bo Dallas," or "That's Eric Rowan," or you can't just start naming name. Nobody knows. If you ask me, that looked like Mordecai last night, if you ask me. So I don't know who the hell is going to be Uncle Howdy, or if all of these different people are just going to be Bray Wyatt. We've heard rumors to the effect of both, that the Wyatt Six could be 6 personalities of Bray Wyatt. The Wyatt Six could also be a faction. Uncle Howdy and Uncle Harper could be Bray Wyatt. Uncle Howdy and Uncle Harper could be other people. We don't know. We just don't know. WWE seems like they are going to be revealing to us little pieces of information at a time to where we can try to puzzle this together. And like I talked about in the last couple of episodes, one of my favorite things about this is that it's not done under Vince. I feel like there actually is an end game. Sometimes I feel like even when they started The Fiend, they didn't really know where it was going. Anything major in WWE that they've started, a lot of times they don't know what the payoff is going to be. I'm hoping, since we have heard reports that WWE has plans for this Wyatt angle all the way through SummerSlam, that means they have shit on paper. That means they know what they want to do, they know the direction they want to go, and they know the journey they want to take the fans on, and they're not just going to make it up as they go along, which means the clues and the hints that we get along the trail here are actually going to be meaningful and might actually mean stuff. So it's good that the fans can be on this stuff with the QR codes and analyze every little pixel and frame of a video to try to piece together what exactly is going on here. And that's what makes this whole thing so intriguing. So now we have another piece of the puzzle. We now have seen physically with our eyes what apparently is going to be Uncle Howdy, but we don't know what form Uncle Howdy is going to take. We don't know if we're going to see that person in the ring, or if it's Bray Wyatt in a disguise, or what. We don't know. That's what's fun about it, and I'm loving where this Bray Wyatt stuff is going, at least so far, because I'm in no rush to find out what his ultimate motivations are. You know, just like when they were teasing the White Rabbit stuff, "Oh, let's end it already." I really hope fans don't get that way with this. Just let it burn. Let it burn slowly. Everything in this world and everything in pro wrestling moves so ridiculously fast these days. It's okay to take a step back and just chill and watch how it plays out. And that's what I recommend we all do for the Bray Wyatt stuff, because I think it's fun. And I really love not knowing the direction, not knowing anything. We don't know anything. We don't even have like a kind of a good idea where this is going. You know, sometimes you can kind of piece it together. Probably they're going to do this. I don't even know what they're going to do. I still don't know if he's a heel or face or both. I think he is both. So I don't know. We're going to watch it. We'll monitor it. We'll talk about it more in the future, I'm sure. Before I get out of here, because I'm running out of time and I want to answer a couple of more super chats before I go, here's what we have for Crown Jewel coming up on November 9th. I have to wake up at 9 in the morning if I want to watch this 2 Saturdays from now. It is going to be Omos most likely taking on Braun Strowman. I don't think that's been made official yet, but you know that match is going to happen based on what we saw last night. OC taking on the Judgment Day. Karrion Kross taking on Drew McIntyre in a steel cage match. Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley, and Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. I'm sure we will get probably 4 more matches added to this card before it's all said and done, but that is what we have so far. So I think that kind of wraps it up now, at least for my notes. I want to cruise over here to the chat, knock out any super chats that have come in, and see what else you guys have to say, and then I got to get out of here, and I've got to get to work, unfortunately, because I got a busy as hell night tonight. Let's see here. Just Alex is back. Did you talk about Billy Gunn being nixed from the DX reunion? Yes, I did. I did talk about that, and I mentioned my mic drop that I released on that whole entire topic a couple of weeks ago when I was begging AEW and WWE to come to some sort of an agreement, because at that time I thought it was possible. Jericho's on Broken Skull Sessions. Jericho, Danielson, Big Show all sent in videos for John Cena. It did not seem like an arrangement that would be too hard to work out, especially since one of them is kind of Triple H's friend. But at the end of the day, that lower third was just too much for WWE to handle, and they just couldn't do it. But yes, I did get into that, and I'm sorry for today's mumbled, jumbled podcast, but we were much more news heavy than we were results and stuff, so it was a lot of rambling today. As Elizabeth told me today, she goes, you love to talk. Because I told her, I was like, I'll try to be done with the podcast in like an hour and a half. She goes, well, you love to talk. It'll probably be 2 hours. And she was right, because it's going on 2 hours now. I want to thank Victor Colon, channel member. Appreciate you. Good to see you here. And thank you for the $5. On WCW Thunder, it took them about 30 minutes to get Buff Bagwell out of the ring when he got injured in a tag match with Rick Steiner. I remember that. So any sort of serious injury, it's going to take you a lot longer than 5 minutes to get that person out of there. You know what I mean? Who else did I miss? Chris Ludecki, good to see you and welcome back. Appreciate $5 from you. Hey, Greg, hope you're doing well. I think for the end of Halloween Havoc, Braun and Omos should come out dressed as mummies and double hump Braun Breaker. That is a great idea. That is a great idea. It's the Yeti. Oh, man, Chris, you got a good idea, man. Let's put that one on the interwebs. Excellent idea. Victor, I did see your super chat just now. Yes, I was rambling and talking. January 1st is on a Sunday. Thank you for that, Queasy. I was not aware of that. Still glad they're doing away with it, though. Day one pay-per-view was stupid. Some people do think Theory is cashing in tonight. I actually want to see that. I hope he does cash in at Halloween Havoc. It's just the fact that he was on the show with so many other main roster members on Tuesday makes me think that that's all it was them adding main roster recognizable stars to compete with AEW's rating. That's all I think it is, but if he showed up and cashed it in, hell, at least it gets that briefcase away from him, and there's no chance that he's going to be cashing that in on a WWE title, because I don't want that. Bring back No Way Out. I'm into that as well. Bring back Armageddon, Ben says, for December. I'm cool with that too. I like a lot of the old pay-per-view names, and I wish they would bring some back. That's for sure. But anyway, I would love to hang out around and talk more, guys. I really would, but I literally have to leave in the next 5 minutes to head off for work, which means if you want to hear the audio of this podcast on the podcast sites, you're going to have to wait till later tonight, probably around midnight my time. Well, that will be up on the audio on the website for download, and then wherever podcasts are found. And don't forget, tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be live watching Halloween Havoc 1998 together. Hulk Hogan, Warrior, Goldberg, DDP. What a night. And what a pay-per-view set. My God, that is what you call a pay-per-view set. We're going to be watching that tomorrow night at Halloween Havoc, which I think also includes a Hall and Nash match. I think Hall versus Nash, I'm pretty sure, is on that pay-per-view as well. So tomorrow should be a lot of fun. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon. Don't forget to hit that like button on the way out the door. Subscribe if you have not yet already. And I will catch you guys tomorrow night for the watch-along. Have a great, great, great rest of your Saturday.